Hello and welcome, friends. Today we are going to start business environment. In this particular subject, we have to talk about those aspects of the environment which influence a business, and why do we need to study about these aspects, so that we may be conscious of the impact that the changes in the environment may have on our business, and may be able to accordingly prepare ourselves and adapt to the change in the environment. And this is the whole reason why we have been studying business environment, and why this is a course that you have to complete in your second semester. And before we start off, just a few things that you'll have to be very conscious about while studying this particular subject. See, it's very important for a manager, for a professional like you people shall be, to be aware of what is happening in the environment, because we would be studying in this particular subject that it is the forces in the environment which impacts the businesses. So the forces in the environment shall impact your business, and if you do not know what is happening in your environment, what forces are evolving in your environment, how would you be able to understand what would be their impact on your business? And if you are not able to understand what is going to be the impact of a particular environmental force on your business, you would certainly not be able to formulate a strategy to cope up with the change, to cope up with the force. So the most important thing that you have to be doing while you are studying this particular subject is you should be aware of whatever is happening in the environment that may impact your business. And how do you have this level of awareness? For that, you will have to read the newspapers on a daily basis. So the task for you now is in this particular subject, and you would be given a project as well. The task for you would be to, on a daily basis, read the newspaper, specifically the news related to the economic affairs, the news related to what is happening around the world, the international news, and the news related to what is happening at the national level, the prominent events that are taking place at the national level, plus the editorial, and to an extent the sports and the entertainment sections of the newspaper, because then only you will be able to forecast. First thing, you will be able to understand what is happening, what are the changes that are taking place in the environment, and then you will be able to forecast how that can impact your business, and then you can come up with a strategy to ensure continued survival of your business even in the changing environment, right? So the task for you would be to keep reading the newspapers, and as I said, you would be given projects that will assess you on how aware you are about the going-ons in your environment, the developments in your environment, right? So let us start the subject, and in the first unit we'll be talking about what basically businesses are, what do we mean by business environment, what are the methods of analyzing the business environment, and what is the limitation of this particular method. We'll also be dealing with the PESTEL framework, the political, economic, socio-cultural, technological, legal, and ecological environment, which are basically, these all 6 kinds of environments are basically what constitute the business environment. So we'll be talking about that framework as well, right? So we are starting the session today. First, let us understand what businesses are. So business basically is an organized effort of enterprise to supply consumers with goods and services for profit. So organized effort, which means people would come together and different people would be given specific roles, and they would act in a coordinated fashion so that the consumers can be supplied with goods that they need or the services that they need, and the enterprise may sell these goods and services to the consumers in return for profit. So this way the enterprise would be able to earn revenue, and they would be able to earn profit by supplying consumers with goods and services. I hope you understand the difference between goods and services. I'll give you an example. Goods, for example, if you're buying a soap, this is an example of a soap, or let's say biscuits. They are all goods. While if you go to a hair cutting salon and get a haircut there, this is a service. You come to the college to pursue your graduation, and we are providing you educational service. You go to the hospital, medical services. So they are services. When you go and buy a mobile handset, or when you go and buy a bike for yourself, or you go and buy cosmetic products, then basically these are all goods. So this is the broad difference between goods and services, right? So now let us talk about the characteristics of businesses. What are the attributes of a business? So the first attribute of a business is that business generally faces competition, except for a few markets. For example, in pure monopoly kind of situations, I hope you have studied about pure monopoly in microeconomics also. Except for conditions like pure monopoly, the businesses have to face competition. You talk about a retailer, the neighborhood retailer that you have, the local kirana store, the neighborhood perchun wala that you have. Even he faces competition, and he is facing competition not only from other retailers, but he is also facing competition from the organized retail industry as well. For example, V-Mart. For example, the organized retail industries like the Big Bazaar. In Pithoragarh you have the By Chance, which is part of the organized retail industry. So your retail store owner, the neighborhood perchun wala that you have, even he faces competition. Now this is an example of the different FMCG brands that we have here in India, and these are different brands, and they are introduced in the market by different firms. Some of these brands might be belonging to the same firm also. For example, if you look at Taj Mahal tea, we have got Taj Mahal tea. Then we have got Lifebuoy, which is a HUL product, Hindustan Unilever Limited product. So they are all competing for the share of customers' pocket in India. And this is just a small example. You can see numerous such examples in different sectors of the economy. For example, even in the education sector, Degree College Pithoragarh is competing with a private institute in the Bungachina area, which is also offering similar kind of professional education. We are also competing with online education portals. We are also competing with the Simans Institute of Technology Pithoragarh, or maybe some other private institutes which have come up in the nearby areas. So all the businesses, they have to face competition. Then the businesses are also regulated by laws. You have a look at some of the laws which are more prominent as far as the world of business is concerned. Zoning law. Then we have got license laws. What all licenses are required? For example, to be able to run a business here, you might require different kind of licenses. For example, if you want to start a cab service, you would require a license for the driver. So there are different license laws. Then there are tax laws. What all taxes have to be paid, how frequently. For example, if you talk about GST, this is nothing but an example of a tax law, goods and services tax. Then we've got laws for the employees as well as the employers. So there are laws for the employees as well as the employers. Then we've got some environmental laws related to some kind of provisions which have been kept there to ensure that the business entities don't pollute the environment. For example, in Uttarakhand we have got the State Pollution Control Board, and if you go to the center, that is, if you talk about the national level, we have got the Central Pollution Control Board. They ensure that the various industries which are there, they don't pollute any water bodies, and that the emission levels are under check. So all these things are ensured by the pollution control boards, both at the state and the central level, and this is what we mean by the environment laws. Then we have got the real property law. Real property would mean your factory or the land. And then we have got the intellectual property laws also. Intellectual property is, for example, if somebody has written a play, if somebody has invented a new machine, if somebody has come up with a new design of a microprocessor chip, these are all basically intellectual properties. And there are laws which govern intellectual properties as well. For example, if somebody has written a song, you simply cannot copy that song until unless you have express permission from the owner of that intellectual property. Why is that called intellectual property? Because it is related to one's intellect. The word in Hindi for intellectual property is the Bauddhik Sampada. So that is related to your buddhi. So you have come up with an invention, you have come up with a new design, or you have been able to write a new song, or you have come up with a new tune. So these are all intellectual property, and we've got laws to regulate the transactions in intellectual property as well. So there are different laws that have to be adhered to while a business is functioning, while a business is running. So the world of business is regulated by laws. Then increasingly greater use of information. You can have a look at this particular picture. This particular picture is basically of the command and control center for a satellite launching operation. But the point that I'm trying to make here is have a look at the computers. What are these computers doing, and what are the people manning these computer stations are doing? They're basically looking at various pieces of information, and accordingly they are taking various decisions. Right? So in businesses nowadays there is greater use of information. For example, if you look at Facebook, if you are using Facebook, you would find out that though you have never explicitly told Facebook about what your product choices are, what kind of products you prefer, or what kind of products you are planning to buy, or what kind of services you are looking for, but the Facebook somehow gets to know what your requirements are, what kind of products you are looking for, and then the ads which you get exposed to on your Facebook page, they most of the time are relevant to our requirements. They are related to whatever kind of product or service we are looking for in the market. The reason is that Facebook basically collects a lot of information about your browsing habits. What sites are you browsing? What all news articles are appearing in your feed? What all pictures are you liking? What all comments you are making? What is it that you are sharing? Based on all these pieces of information, they prepare a customer profile of every single browser, every single user of Facebook, and then they understand what kind of customer a particular user is, what kind of products does he require, what are his emerging needs, and accordingly they will place ads which are relevant to your requirements. So this is what Facebook does. What I'm trying to tell you is that nowadays in businesses there is increasingly greater use of information. This is fine. The information is in fact a fuel that actually helps a business increase its revenue earnings and increase its profits. So this is one more characteristic of business that you will have to keep in your mind. And then businesses are dynamic. Dynamic means they will have to keep changing. I have given you just a picture just to let you understand how computers used to look like earlier. Have a look at this particular machine which looks like a typewriter. Then have a look at how the initial computers were. And then now have a look at what is happening nowadays. Generally we have got laptops, and then we have now notebooks, and then now most of the customers, many of the customers, rather than buying a computer, they would rather prefer buying a mobile phone, because most of the functions which are performed by a computer, they can perform the same functions on their mobile phone. So this is how the businesses are changing. They cannot stick to the same product which they were selling in 1980s or 1990s. They will have to keep on changing depending on the change in the environment and according to the change in the needs of the customer. So that is another characteristic of a business. Businesses are dynamic in nature. They have to keep changing. Have a look at the education institutes. What have they been doing after the COVID 2019 outbreak? Many of them, which includes our department and our college also, we used to rely on live classes earlier. Before the outbreak, we used to sit together, we students in a class, and we used to teach. And after the outbreak, since the classes have been called off because of the lockdown, what have we done? We have tried to learn online teaching skills, and now we are giving classes online, or at least using the internet. So we have to keep on changing according to the change in the environment, because if we are not able to do that, we would not be able to survive, and we would not be able to remain the preferred choice of our customer. I'll give you an example of what happened with Videocon. Earlier, Videocon used to have a very large market share of Indian television market. But after 1991, what happened? There were so many companies from countries like Japan, from countries like Korea, which entered the Indian market. Then they started selling their own wares, their own TVs. Since Videocon was not able to change to this new reality, they were not able to improve their technology, they were not able to upgrade their technology. Slowly and slowly, their market share was taken over by these companies. And today, if you look at the market share in the television market, you would find that Videocon is nowhere near the top 5. So if the businesses are not dynamic, they do not change according to the change in the environment, it is not going to be possible for them to survive. And that is why businesses are dynamic. This is one attribute that the businesses possess. Now we are moving on to the good side of the businesses and the bad side, the pros and the cons. What is the good side of a business? It improves quality of life. You can have a look at this picture. This aged guy, he's using a mobile phone. You can have a look at this mobile phone here. And of course, he might be taking a photograph, or he might be taking a selfie, or he might be making a video call to a friend of his, or maybe to a relative of his. But ultimately, this particular product which has been brought out by a business enterprise, this has improved his quality of life. Now he doesn't need to worry about what is happening back in his home. What are the family members doing? He's not worried about them. He can talk to them at any point of time whenever he feels like, just because he has access to this particular device. And this particular device has been brought out by maybe a business firm called Samsung, or it could be Micromax, it could be Vivo or Oppo. So this is how businesses improve quality of life. Think about the current crisis, and think about how important it is for you to wash your hands on a regular basis. In fact, some of the researchers say that if you wash your hands 10 times a day, you significantly reduce your risk of being infected by the coronavirus. Of course, this has to be independently verified. But my point is, who is bringing these kind of soaps, be it liquid soaps or be it some other kind of soaps or sanitizers in the market? Ultimately, these are the businesses. So businesses not only try to make profit, but they in a way are also able to improve quality of your life. Just because it's a little hot nowadays, the month of May, but just because there is a company which manufactures fans and it has sold its fans to you, and you have that fan installed in your home, now you feel comfortable and you can study without worrying about the heat, without worrying about the high temperature. So this is how businesses improve quality of life for the normal customers. Then again, businesses create job opportunities. There are so many people who are working in one or the other industry. If you look at the service industry, most of our population is engaged either in service industries or in the manufacturing sector. So businesses create job opportunities. You look at this particular picture, what I'm trying to show you is a film is getting shot. However, if you look at the scene, you find that there is just one actor. However, there are so many people who are performing the support activities. The director is there, the light man is there, the lights man is there, maybe the makeup artist, the director, the producer, the sound recorder. So many people are there. So many job opportunities are created by businesses. Then naturally, if the businesses will create job opportunities, they are also going to contribute to the economic growth of a particular country. And this is what happens with businesses. You are studying macroeconomics there, you would have found out that when businesses create jobs, they provide jobs to more number of people, the income levels of these people increase. Naturally, when there is an increase in their income level, they would want to purchase something from the market. So let's say they start purchasing more bread, let's say they start purchasing mobile phones. This would lead to an increase in demand for bread and mobile phone, and so the companies which are selling breads, it could be Britannia, or the company which is selling a mobile phone, it could be Micromax or Vivo, Oppo. They increase their production level and then they further employ more number of people. So this is the virtuous chain of activities that is kick-started by businesses in an economy. So they also contribute to economic growth. They contribute tax revenue for the government. You have examples of goods and services tax. There are so many other taxes also. There are examples of corporate tax. So all these taxes are paid to the government, and it actually helps the government have sufficient amount of money to spend on programs for social welfare. So this is how businesses are contributing to the economic growth of different countries also. But then there are some issues with the business world also. Businesses degrade environment. However, this is not a statement that applies to all the businesses. There are businesses which are being run in a very environment conscious manner. They in fact have come up with products that don't pollute the environment. They have come up with new innovations which don't cause any pollution in the environment. But then by and large, if you look at the business world, you would find that they generally degrade the environment. It could be the soil pollution, it could be the air pollution as can be seen here, it could be the pollution of the underground water. Many of the businesses ultimately cause environment degradation. If you talk about the pesticides and the fertilizer firms, what do? They sell their fertilizers and pesticides to the farmers, and many times they try to oversell. So the farmer may not require a pesticide, but they would still convince him to buy the pesticide so that they may be able to increase their profit earnings. But then what will happen? The farmer would use excessive amount of pesticide in his fields, and then the excessive pesticide would seep down to the underground water table, and then it would pollute the water. So many of the businesses, in pursuit of profit, they may take those kind of steps, they may come up with those kind of marketing strategies which ultimately degrade the environment. Then businesses also increase consumerism. What do we mean by consumerism? Consumerism is when you don't require a product, but the businesses, the marketers make you believe that that product is necessary for your survival. So a product which is basically not a necessary product is made to look like a necessary product. For example, hair gel is not a necessary product. You can survive without having a hair gel also. Likewise, you can survive with a deodorant also. But the marketers who are selling deodorants or hair gels, they have made it look like a necessary, basic necessity product. And how do they do that? They make creative use of advertising. And you start feeling that if you do not use a deodorant or a hair gel, you would probably not be able to make friends. in your schools and colleges, you would be looked down upon by your fellow colleagues, and that is why you start thinking, no, I need this particular hair gel or this particular deodorant, because otherwise I may have to suffer failure in different endeavors, because this is what is shown in the advertisements. So this is what consumerism is. You do not need a pack of chips or a bottle of Pepsi while you are traveling, but you still purchase it. This is not a necessity product, but you still purchase it because they have made you think that these products are important for you. And this is what is consumerism. Have a look at this particular cartoon that is shown here. This lady has gone to a bookshop and she is probably suffering from this impulse buying kind of behavior. She cannot control her urge to buy a product when she sees that product. So that is why, and now to get rid of this particular impulse buying, now she is purchasing another book so that she can rein in her habit of impulsive buying. So for that also she is purchasing another book, she is buying another book. So this is the extent of consumerism which is there. She is buying this one. Why she is buying this one? So that she can control her impulses. She can prevent herself from buying unnecessarily when she goes to a store. But ultimately she is doing the same thing here also. She is buying on impulse. She is buying this particular book on impulse. So this is the kind of consumerism which the businesses try to engender among the customers. Then many businesses have been known to have duped customers just to sell their wares, just to sell their products. Now you have a look at this piece of ad which, as far as I know, was withdrawn later on. Sirf ek raat mein gori twacha pai, day 1 and day 2. This is an atrocious example of how customers are duped by the businesses just so that they may be able to sell their wares. And there are numerous such examples. I have given you just a few nuggets. You will have to go through the newspapers and you will come across numerous such examples when the customers have been duped by the businesses. And this is not something which is specific to big businesses only, to organized businesses only. It could be your neighborhood retailer. It could be your neighborhood vegetable seller. It could be a small business operating in your own town, in your own village. They may also try to dupe you at times. So this is one thing which is not very good with the business world. This is one thing that the business world has to rein in. And then there are so many corrupt practices also that these businesses generally engender. You have a look at these photographs. You can have a look at Mr. Vijay Mallya, who is absconding, and he has been declared a willing absconder by the government, and he's currently out of the country, and he is resisting the Indian government's efforts to bring him back to the country for the purpose of examining various charges of corrupt or malpractices, for corrupt practices that were actually by this particular business enterprise, Kingfisher. So they indulge in so many corrupt practices, so many malpractices, and the government is planning to examine these charges against him, but he has refused to come back to India. Then we have got Mr. Goel from the Jet Airlines. Jet Airlines had to close down, and some of the employees were terminated. Their salaries were also not paid. And then you have got another example of Mr. Nirav Modi, who is again absconding. So yes, I agree that the charges against these businessmen are yet to be proven. However, there are reasonable doubts they have indulged in corrupt practices and they are being tried by the courts of our country, which is an example of how businesses many a times indulge in corrupt practices. You might have heard of the Satyam scam. Satyam was an IT firm. It was among the leading IT firms in India around 2008-9, and later on a scam was unearthed in Satyam. So these are the ways in which businesses indulge in corruption. Now, let us talk a little bit about the environment before closing of the session. What is environment? Environment, please understand and please don't confuse it with environment as we generally see this term nowadays. We are not referring to the ecology. We are referring to all the external forces which are there, which could have a bearing on the functioning of the business. So everything outside a business entity which could impact the performance of that particular business entity, which could impact the functioning of that business entity, is part of the environment, right? Have a look at this picture and you'll find out. This is a picture, of course, this picture has been taken in some foreign country. Sorry, we are closed due to COVID-19. This is one event, the outbreak of COVID-19, that led to closure of so many businesses. In fact, it has disrupted the global economy. So many businesses had to close down. In India also, so many businesses had to close down. People had to migrate back to their villages. So this happened because of this particular crisis, the COVID-19 outbreak. Now this was a development in the environment which impacted so many business, and this is an example of business environment. These kind of forces in the environment, they are largely beyond the control of individual enterprise. No individual enterprise could have controlled the outbreak of COVID-19. So these kind of forces are beyond the control of the individual enterprise. The businesses cannot control these kind of forces. Let us take example of the very recent changes in the GST regime. Earlier we used to have a number of different kind of taxes which were levied, which used to be levied on goods and services also, and now we have come up with GST. But please understand, whether or not this GST would be implemented, what would be the mode of implementation, what would be the frequency of tax payment, what would be the frequency of filing the returns, this was not decided by the businesses. It was basically decided by the government. It was basically decided by the parliament. So these were part of those changes in the environment which impacted the businesses, and these changes were beyond the control of these individual enterprises of the various businesses. Please understand that there is a two-way relationship between the business and the environment. What do we mean by this? Businesses impact the environment. We have seen that. We have seen that the environment impacts the businesses. On the other hand, this though looks a little far-fetched, but it is true that businesses also impact the environment. How? Let's take this example. Business also influences environment. Why I'm taking this example? Now you know about this actor from the entertainment industry, and in some of his movies he was spotted wearing this bracelet. And what happened? So basically he belonged to entertainment sector, and some companies were producing his movies, and some of these movies and some of the TV shows he was spotted wearing these bracelets. What happened then? So many loyal fans of this particular actor, they were so very impressed, and they started purchasing these kind of bracelets. What would have happened? Bracelets like this were demanded by the fans of this particular actor, and now wearing these kind of bracelets has become a trend. This has become some kind of a fashion statement. So what has basically happened is that this business of producing movies, or the entertainment sector business, this has led to a change in the fashion trend in the country. So many people have started buying these kind of bracelets and wearing these kind of bracelets. So the businesses may also influence the environment. For examples, only recently when the COVID-19 crisis broke out and many of the businesses had to close down, some of the hospitality industry people, they came together and they went to the government demanding some kind of tax relief for them. Hospitality industry is hotel and tourism kind of a sector. So they went to the government and they informed the government about the losses that the sector has incurred and how important the hospitality sector is for the economy of the country. And they demanded some relaxation on the tax front by the government. And the government may very soon provide them these kind of relaxations. So here the businesses, by lobbying with the government, they have been able to influence the developments in their environment. They have been able to influence the government to bring about those policies which might be conducive for their sustained growth. So naturally businesses also influence the forces outside, while the forces outside, that is the environment, also influences the business. So there is a two-way relationship between the business and the environment. I took the example of those companies which have been selling deodorants. Just by using creative advertising to market their product, they are changing the environment for themselves. Now those people who earlier felt that deodorants are not very important for them and they never used to buy a deodorant, now they have been made to believe that deodorants are very important for them. And this way the marketers of these deodorants, they have been able to influence the environment, to influence the customers, and the customers are demanding more and more of such kind of products. So the business may also influence the environment. So this is a two-way relationship. The businesses impact the environment also impacts the businesses. Businesses were dynamic in nature, just like that environment is also dynamic in nature. In fact, the businesses have to be dynamic because the environment is dynamic. Environment is changing continuously, and that is why businesses also have to change continuously, because if they do not, they would not be able to adapt to the changing environment. They would not be able to survive. So the environment is also dynamic in nature, and ultimately it is the reason why the businesses also have to be dynamic in nature. I'll give you an example of how environment is dynamic in nature. Have a look at the products which were bought earlier by the families here in India. So many a times, and that was the case in 1980s and 90s, the brides used to be gifted sewing machines on their marriage. There used to be radios, and these kind of radios used to be extensively used not only by the population in rural areas but also in the urban areas. But now new technology has come up, the environment has changed, there is new technology, we have got mobile phones, we have got televisions, and so there is no demand in the market, or nominal only demand left for these kind of products in the market. So this is what I mean by saying that the environment is dynamic in nature. So friends, with this we have come to the end of this particular session. The task for you, as I said in the beginning also, would be to keep going through the newspapers, and whenever we'll have a test on the different units that we'll discuss, the test will expect you to provide examples for every single statement that you are making, and these examples should be your own based on your newspaper readings. So you would don't have to take examples from what I have been discussing with you. You are not going to take examples from these presentations. The examples have to be your own. And for that, you have to continuously keep reading newspapers. You have to be aware of what is happening in the environment. And this is how you will be assessed in this particular subject. How much you know about the changes in the environment and how many of these changes can you write about in your tests. Fine. So please be accordingly prepared. Thank you very much.